If you fill out your card, you get your name in the hat for a prize.
Right. That's what they have time.
I know. Prizes are good.
All right, everyone. It's 11:02, so we're going to begin. Thank you so much for being here today. This is probably the most people we've had in one of these trainings in a bit, so I'm so excited that everyone is here. As you know, obviously, and based on the screen, today we are going to be going over how to really infuse AI into the CMA process. And if you've been in team meetings recently when I've been talking, I've said we're not using AI to just create a CMA for us, right? We don't want that because at the end of the day, that's where your knowledge as a realtor comes in. And so we're not using AI to just replace the whole CMA process. But what we are going to use it for is really level up the conversations that you're having with your clients regarding the CMA and the whole pricing as just the concept in general. How can we get in front of the questions or any pushback that they may have, and just how we can create a cleaner concept as we're going through the whole CMA process. And so before we begin, I know I've asked a few of you this as I put this class together, but I just want to get a better gauge. How do you guys prepare a CMA when you are walking into a meeting with your sellers? Are you using MLS, RPR? Kind of walk me through what that process looks like for you guys. MLS. Yep. So are you just using the quick MLS CMA where you have a little packet like this, even shorter maybe? This is the longer version. Yeah, perfect. Well, that works out well because that's what I'm using for my example today. So it'll be easy to follow along. But when we are walking through this class, we are going to talk about 3 different ways that I have identified as good to how we can bring AI into your CMA. And so the first one there is going to be understanding the story behind the numbers. So as you know, we have access to so much data these days, and your clients do as well. I mean, between all of the internet resources and just people talking to other homeowners who have gone through the process, there's a lot of data in there for both you and your clients. And so your value is going to come from how can you interpret the data for your clients, right? It's one thing if you just give them the CMA packet. It's another thing if you can effectively guide them through the process. And as realtors, you guys are all great at that, but we're going to be showing how AI can make it more efficient for you, and then also create some good collateral that you can leave behind with your clients as well, just to make the whole process a bit cleaner and easier to digest for them. Because if you're pulling stats and looking at all this data, unless you're really into that, it could be hard to decipher that for most people, or if your brain doesn't operate that way. So we want to make it as simple as possible for them. And so the first thing we're going to be doing is looking at AI as kind of a market analyst. How can we use it with our CMA to create an overall market snapshot? We're also going to use it to defend our pricing recommendations. So you're presenting comps to your clients, obviously. And one of the most common questions they say is, why these properties? Why are we comparing my house to these? Why not the one down the block that sold for much more? And so it's really going to be effective in helping us explain their comps and then show the kind of pros and cons that ultimately led to you getting to your price recommendation. And then finally, we're going to be using it as a kind of a pricing strategy tool. So you'll hear me say it a few more times, but we're not using AI to say, this house is worth X amount of dollars. We're going to use it by saying, as a realtor, I know it's worth this much. Here's why, and just kind of bolster your recommendation for the client. So the first thing we're going to dive into is kind of the market analyst. So like I said, we have access to so much data, but your value is really going to come from how you can take that data and help your clients understand it a bit more and really answer the questions that they have before they even have to ask it, right? So if we look at some of the terms on there, this is what is in the CMA. So you have your month supply, the percentage of original list price received, price reduction, days on market. And when clients look at this, they may understand some of those terms. I mean, they probably know what days on market means, but we want to show them, like, what does that actually mean for their house? So if it is X amount of days on market, what does that look like for their property? And how does that translate into, like, why should they care, essentially? So when we're looking at the CMA packet, we have all of this data. And like I said, most people aren't going to care about that. They're not going to take the time to look through the packet. So we're going to use AI to answer the questions that they have before they even can ask you them. And that just makes you all the more credible to them and kind of removing that friction. So before we begin on that, I have a packet for you guys. So if you've been to one of my classes before, you know the drill. But you can scan this QR code and this links to a Google Doc. You can make a copy of the packet and really customize it to be however you want. I also have hard copies here I can pass out. Sorry, Barry. So if you want a hard copy to follow along with as well, I have those. But yes, so go ahead and make a copy of this Google Doc. And the point of this is to be a resource for you that you can refer back to multiple times. So if you are working with the prompts and you want to tweak them a little bit, you totally can make it workable to your system. Oh, sorry. Why you get the last copy? So as you look at this, it is just going to be the different prompts that we're going to be walking through today. Like I said, use it as a resource moving forward because I want this to be a repeatable system for you. But another thing that we're going to be working with is obviously we're diving into CMAs. And so the CMA that I will be working with, you can scan to see a copy of it right now if you want. My friend Rob Brantley prepared it for me. And so as we're diving through and you're going to see the data that AI is using in the graphics that it creates, it's being pulled from this CMA. That being said, if you guys have your own CMA that you've created recently or you plan on using it with clients coming up, I recommend using that because then you're kind of seeing what it is for your own listing. But if you don't have one and want to follow along with me, you can always scan to download the copy that I'll be using. Any questions before we dive in? Did everything work for everyone?
That's supposed to be the CMA you're talking about?
Yes. Yep. It should take you to a PDF that you can download.
It's the same information. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that is okay. Give me 2 seconds and I will fix it. All right. Okay, now if you scan the code, it should take you to the PDF. Thank you.
You planned that, didn't you?
No, it'd be more impressive if the QR codes worked on the first try, but
How fast you are anyway.
awesome. And like I said, you guys can totally use this CMA and follow along with me, but if you have your own as well that you want to experiment with, go for it. Okay, so what I am going to be using today is ChatGPT. You can use any form of AI that you'd like. If you use Gemini, Claude, Chat, whatever you prefer. Every one is going to give you a different output, and not that any one is better than the other. It's whatever you're comfortable with and what you typically work with. I'm using Chat, and I will tell you why in a little bit as we dive in. I just don't recommend using Copilot. I had someone use that in Elk River, and it just couldn't create the visuals that we were wanting. So if anybody is using that, I would recommend switching just for this class. But so the first thing that we're going to do is like I said, we want it to become our market analyst. And so what we want to do is take our CMA and we're just going to upload that straight to whatever AI platform we're using. That way we know it's always pulling from that source. It's taking our information and essentially it's condensing all of the information we give it into much more tangible outputs for us. So what we can do, chat. Okay, so should see everything. Awesome. So the first thing that I did is I uploaded my CMA to, let me grab that here. And you can just download it and pull it from your files. Perfect. So now that we've uploaded our CMA, One thing that we're going to then move into is this worksheet. So if you have the digital version, perfect. If you have it right in front of you, you can follow along. But essentially, we just start out with the workflow. I've included this. It's very simple, but I included it because if down the road you are using this as a repeatable system, just some instructions so you can remember how to work everything. But we're going to be looking at that first prompt there, AI as your CMA analyst. So as you can see, the goal is we're identifying the most important market insights and seller talking points. So like I said, we want to get in front of the questions that we know sellers are going to be asking, such as how quickly will my home sell? How aggressive should we be pricing it? What happens if we overprice? Just stuff that typically comes up in your conversations. We're going to use AI and incorporate it into this prompt to then create answers and kind of a analysis to those questions. So when you walk into the meeting, you already have everything prepared and it's very much more proactive to your sellers, which they will appreciate. So all you have to do is copy that prompt and put it into your chat. One thing that I will note is at the end, it says, end with the section titled What This Means for You, that summarizes the overall market conditions and key recommendations for the seller. When you guys are doing your prompts and everything, I always like adding something like this at the end of it because it's kind of a summary. So we're not just digging into the data, but it's connecting it back to why they should care. And it just creates easier talking points for you guys. And then also at the end there, it says, format the final output as a professional one-page seller handout. I also like including these because it formats everything a lot cleaner and it gives you something to give to your clients versus just a bunch of text, because that doesn't really mean much if you're working with your seller.
And we're just doing step one, correct, right now?
Yep, we are on prompt one.
Okay.
So, like you can see, we just copied that in there and we are going to let AI think for a second on it. And I said that I was using chat today, and I wanted to do that because in the past, it hasn't been the best with images, right? If you can try to have chat create different images for you, people have a third arm or something is very blurry, or you just like, that is a fake person. However, in the last month, they updated their software, so they are now a lot better at generating images. I still think Gemini is the best for generating images, especially if you're trying to get detailed. But I wanted to use chat today to show you that they are improving, and especially we're going to be working with infographics, and chat is phenomenal at infographics in my opinion. So I was trying. Perfect. Okay, so as you can see, sorry, my thing is lighting a bit. I was trying to be so proactive and have everything ready to go, but because I let it sit, it timed out on me. Okay, has anybody submitted yet? What type of insights has it given you? It's still thinking?
It told me how fast it's likely to sell,
Mm-hmm.
the most aggressive, where to competitively price it, not too high.
Yeah. All right. So yes, as you can see, it is now taking all of the questions that we put in there and it's providing us with an answer that we can give our clients. As realtors, you guys know this information, but AI is supposed to make you more efficient. And so if you're able to just upload a CMA and get your answers and really dive deeper into the data and present it in a way that's easy for the sellers to understand, that's where the value comes in. So as you can see, we are looking at all of these questions that the sellers could possibly ask, and we're getting more details on that. One thing that I will say is because you guys have these prompts now, if you are looking at these questions and you're thinking, oh, I want to add in one of these, perfect. Add it to the prompt, edit it, get it on your list. Or if one doesn't really come up and you don't want to include it, you can remove it as well. So that's why I wanted to give you access to everything because it is customizable. So this is really cool. It's giving us the data, but how does that impact the sellers, right? You're not just going to write up a big handout and give it to them because that is what the CMA is, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So what I like to do is, and especially in chat with their new update, is I like to say, please make this info into a infographic. So now we're getting on into the actual visuals of everything. So we're creating an actual tangible slide, printout, whatever you want to give to your clients. And it's going to think for a while to generate your image. I went ahead and did it. So this is what it came up with for me this morning when I put in this prompt and had it make a infographic. So you can see that it just takes all of the questions that we wanted it to answer, and it created something that is clean and that you can give to your clients. And it's a lot easier to understand than going into the graphs and the bar charts. If your clients think that way, fantastic. Give them that. They love the data. Perfect. But most people prefer things that are a bit more visually appealing. And so you can use chat and any AI to create visuals like this. So it gives you here what the questions are that we put in, and it just gives you simple answers and the data that supports it. So we're taking a big packet and really minimizing it into just the key themes, which is what, as you're going through, yes.
Down here. I was just gonna write it.
So after the first prompt, it gave me the response. All I did was say, please make this an infographic. Yes. But yeah, so it just takes the questions that we did and made it into a visual. And one thing that I really like that we included is that it says what this means for you section, also with key recommendations. So it's not just summarizing everything, it's actually providing recommendations, and that is what you can provide your clients with. Any questions on that? Any comments at all as we're looking at the visuals? I always like to gauge, is this something that you would want to leave behind with your clients as you are presenting, or at least go through the slide? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so everyone has listing presentations, or if you're walking through a different meeting with the CMA, you have your resources for that. We created this in about 2 minutes. And once you have your CMA and you have the prompt packet that you guys all have access to now, it's really just copy and pasting. And so it's very easy to scale. If you're doing multiple of these, you can just run it through and get these graphics. And one thing that I will note, and you'll kind of see as we go through the class, all of mine have a similar brand look. You can also upload what you want your brand style to look like. So for Kim, you can say you want the guild group on there. You have your colors. If you do that ahead of time, all of the visuals that it's going to create will be in your brand. So that's just kind of a bonus as you're creating visuals for people. Anne, you had a question?
So using Gemini and my infographic is really ugly.
Yeah.
Did that just create that like that in ChatGPT for you?
It did, yes. So when you say it's really ugly, is it because you don't like the style? Is there too much information on the page?
Like mine tells me that I can't get to this because it doesn't have the share, and so I go back to that link, but I can't. It just has general access as viewer.
Are you talking about the infographic or?
CMA.
Got it. So did you just paste a link or did you upload a file? So when you paste a link, it's going to try to read that for you. And if it's a public link, then it can, like a website. However, yes, download a copy of it so it's a PDF file that you upload. Yeah. For public facing websites, you can just upload the link. It's easy for them to read, but files, upload the actual files.
And so a quick question. Do I have to, for like when you were talking about like with my logo and my colors and stuff?
Yep.
Does that have to get put in each time, or I can say, please use, because it'll look back to what I've given it before?
Yep. Yeah. So if you have you can do it in your settings for chat, create your brand, or if you have a separate channel where you kind of establish your brand identity, it'll just remember you. So you can say, please do it in my brand. And one thing that I will note is this is I said a landscape slide because I knew I was presenting in a slideshow format today, obviously. But if you want it to be more of a flyer, 8.5 by 11, all you have to do is specify that. So I just said, please create an infographic. You can say, please create a flyer, 8.5 by 11. And it really tailors it to what you want to leave with your client. Yeah. Any questions about anything of relating to this before we move on? Craig.
PDF into Gemini.
Into Gemini. Okay. Abby, do you want to help that for a second? Abby will help you, but essentially you just download your file and there should be a button to upload.
PDF into, you get it.
But anyway, the main
people that don't know how to do all these things.
that is why you're here though, and I love it. But the main point with this prompt is we are looking at the market as a whole around this property. So, and for example, you do a lot of work in Richfield, you know what the Richfield area is, but let's say you go all the way out to St. Cloud, where, you know, you may not be as familiar with it. This is a good way for you to get an overall view of the market in that area fast. You can dig in, do your research and everything, but if you're not an expert in a area, this is a great way to get the highlights and everything and come into your clients as an expert, even if it may not be your main area. But yes, so this is the market snapshot. We're answering the questions that our clients may have. And if you can come to them with this handout ready saying, hey, here are the most likely questions that my sellers typically have. Here are the answers to them if you have it. That's going to give you a whole lot more credibility and you're being more proactive and the whole process is going to be a lot smoother. Awesome. Okay. So moving on, we now know kind of the market behind what our property is. Now the next conversation we're having with our clients is, okay, based on these comps in the CMA, this is what I think that your home is going to be worth. And it's not even you thinking it. This is what the market dictates your home is worth. And so one conversation that you're going to have, and I'm sure several of you have had pushback, have had these questions, but your clients are going to ask, how did you come up with that price, right? You can present them a ton of comps and they're going to say, oh, but why didn't you include this one? Or my neighbor's house sold for more. Why can't we list mine for a higher value as well? And so you have all of these questions that they typically give you, and you can walk through the CMA and be like, well, looking at these comps and go through the pages of it, or you can also verbalize it. But like I said, most people respond better to visuals, simple visuals that they can just look at in 2 seconds and understand the story. So that is going to be what we're doing today. So like I've said before, there's so much data out there and the real value is coming into how you interpret that data. So I love the saying up there, data builds a CMA, interpretation builds trust, because anybody can go out and get a CMA. You can work with any realtor, they'll give you a price. Your value is going to shine when you can interpret that and really walk them through it so they feel comfortable with the price. It's also going to save you a lot of time down the road when, you know, there's not going to be as much friction as you're working through that. So if we look at the second prompt on the page there, we're going to be using AI as AI-assisted comparable analysis. So we are going to explain why the comps that we chose support our price recommendation. So if we are looking at the CMA that Rob so kindly prepared for me, the house is sitting at about $210,000. We pulled some comps around that to support that, but if we just present all of those, it can get lost and really not be as effective. So we're going to have AI create an infographic for us on how we can highlight why we chose the comps that we did, why they support the price that we recommend, and just what that means for the seller overall. So if we look at the prompts there, we are saying review the CMA and analyze the comparable sales. And then we're saying explain why these were selected, what the most important similarities and differences are, and then what features are going to have the greatest impact on the value, and why they support the price that we provided. So just like before, we already have our CMA uploaded into our AI, so there's no reason to do that again. So all you have to do on this one is copy and paste the prompt, keeping it very simple. And going back, it did finish generating the picture that I wanted. So as you can see, it's a very similar look, but it's just a clean way of representing it. But we are just going to copy and paste that prompt there, let chat think for a little bit, and it's going to give us a similar response where it kind of walks through all of the different features. Has anybody tried it? Kim, any highlights that are standing out to you with the response?
Talks about seller takeaways. You know, despite being smaller and lacking a garage, it's currently attracting buyers at a certain price point it gives you. This suggests that buyers are comfortable paying in the low 200 range for well-maintained condos in that location. And your additional square footage and garage space are meaningful advantages.
Nice. Yeah, and that's pretty similar to what I have here. But what I like about the way that we set up this prompt is that first it's starting out with kind of an intro. So we're telling the consumer why we are doing a comps on it, what impacts it, just kind of an overview. And then we're getting into a section why these properties were selected, right? we're not just picking them because they're right next door. Obviously, that's a huge factor, but they're also comparable in the beds and baths, square footage, similar amenities, things like that. And so what AI is doing is it's looking specifically at your CMA, pulling out the details because there are a lot of details about the properties in your CMA. It's taking all of that and summarizing it and pulling out the things that are really going to matter for the sellers. So as you can see, it then goes through each of the properties. So here are the ones that we are using for our current one. And it's just saying the similarities, the differences, and why the seller should care. That bottom line is my favorite because we can give them all the data, but unless the sellers know why they should care about something, it's not going to have the same impact. So this is just great verbiage that you can use with them as you're meeting with them, or if you're sending them an email, any type of communication. It's really key. So then we are just moving through all of the comps that we listed. And the next section is going to be what features have the greatest impact on value. And so this is just a good checklist for your clients to know, because if they are thinking to do renovations of any type, and you can say, oh, that's a great idea because if you do this type of renovation, it'll impact the price this much. Or you can say, oh, you know what? Let's hold off on that because that's not going to be a key price driver. So it's great to come out them with that type of knowledge because one, it boosts your credibility, but it also saves them time and money not having to do certain things. But we're going to see what has the greatest impact on value and why, and then why the comps support the price that you recommend. And like I said, my favorite part is the bottom line, because why should the sellers care? It gives you a nice little summary. Does that make sense to everybody, kind of what the information is that we presented? Just kind of a general question. Is there anything additional that you would want to see in this? I go back and I edit prompts and kind of make things more relatable based on the feedback I have in classes. Is there anything in this information that you would want added that you have in conversations with your clients around the whole comps?
Maybe something about like, should I replace the carpet versus not replacing the carpet? Yeah. Kind of, move-in ready versus
love that.
letting people raise less. And
yeah. Perfect. I like that. I'll look into tweaking the prompt a bit. One thing that I wanted to show you guys is this obviously gave us a big write-up, and you can tell that it is in kind of a separate box here. One thing that I like that chat does, and I think Gemini does a similar thing as well, is that it can actually treat this as its own document. So you have your little tool things up here. You can obviously copy all the text if you want, like move it to an email. But if you hit the download button, it will create just a PDF, Word doc, whatever, and it takes all of this information and essentially creates a document out of it. It's just a quick way if you want to copy all of this and send it to someone. You're not just copying and pasting, messing around with formatting. It does all of that for you. So that is a good prompt, a good little trick as well. But this is a lot of words, right? We want our clients to have just a quick glance at something and know what it is. So as you can probably guess, we're going to do the same thing as last time, where we're going to ask it to make an infographic for us with this information. And so when we do that, it's going to generate the image. So you guys can go ahead and try that on your own and see what type of image it comes up with. When I did it this morning, this is the graphic that it gave me. So as you can see, we are walking through each of the properties. This one's a little bit busier. Personally, I would probably dial it back a bit. Just if I'm giving this to my client, it can be a little overwhelming. So I would probably remove a few things just for simplicity's sake. But as you can see, it is taking the 3 comps that are in the CMA and it's summarizing them. It pulls the listing cover photo from the CMA as well, and it highlights what the similarities are. And this is why we chose this comp to represent your property, because here are the similarities. It just gives the overall theme as well. And then these points down here tells us why we are choosing these comps, like the overall. So this one establishes the lower end of today's market. This is what they are considering today. And then this one, it mentions that this is showing us what it looks like when things are kind of have more amenities and more features. But it does note that it spent a longer time on the market as well. So it's just really taking all of that data and making it into a good one-pager that you can give your clients. It also says kind of more of the data down here. Here's what the lowest one is, the highest, the average price, and the median. So they can visually see what kind of numbers they are. And then when you go to give your recommendation, they can see easily kind of place that in line with this. So it just goes to make it easier for them when you give them your number, that they can see where you got that from. You have the data to support it, and then it fits in as well. Any comments about this graphic as we are looking at it? Would we want to give this to our sellers? Are there any tweaks that we would do? Like I said before, this one is also customizable by your theme. So if you have your colors and everything, you can tailor it to fit your brand, which is very beneficial. Yep, you can. So let's say in your conversation, you have this and you say, like, this is great. Can we create a graphic for each comp? That's how I would phrase it. And then it would break it down into 4 different images. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Awesome. Okay. So the final one, that the segment that we are going to look at today, is using AI for a pricing strategy. And when I was putting this class together, I was kind of struggling with this because you don't just say, hey, chat, price this house for me. That's not what we're here for. But I wanted to do something kind of related to pricing strategy because that is the pivotal moment of the CMA. Like, you are giving them your price. We want to be able to defend that. And so I wanted to incorporate it. And kind of what I came up with is the pricing strategy conversation. How can we have AI make that smoother for us, create a visual? How can we help clients understand that a bit more? So when you are having conversations with your clients, how many of you have had the question, what if we just list it for $5,000 more? Or what if we listed it just slightly below that so we can go into multiples? Like, what happens? When clients are asking you those questions, you can walk them through what those scenarios would look like, and you can kind of play out and explain to them kind of verbally what would happen if they listed over your recommendation, what would happen if they went under. But a good way about that is you can also be proactive. And so what I did, and this is just a rough draft, we'll make it pretty in a second, but what I did was have AI create a pricing strategy matrix that you can use with your clients. So as you can see, these are different numbers, but this is our recommended price here. Here's what happens if we do it at the recommended price. If your clients say, okay, but what if we want to go under? You can say, here's what happens if you go under. Here's what happens if you go over. It kind of creates this train of thought of what could happen. And the categories that we're looking at are buyer perception, market activity, negotiation position, potential risks, and best case. So obviously, if they go under the price, the buyer perception is that, oh, okay, it's cheaper than other properties. That's great. Let's look at it. As a result, you're going to have high showing potential. More people are going to come through. Where the opposite is true if you go over. People are going to see your property and they're like, oh, this one is more expensive compared to other ones that are very similar. So your showings may be fewer and it may be a more selective buyer pool. So does that make sense how kind of this reads? I like this because it's kind of walking through the line of thought that you're essentially explaining to your clients, and it's doing so in a way that is visual for them. Like I said, the power comes in being proactive, and so if you can show this to your clients by anticipating what they're going to say, that just really solidifies you as the best realtor option. So the way that we do this pricing strategy matrix is looking at that third prompt there. So you will see this one is just a little different in the sense that there are 3 blanks for you to fill out. I left it blank because obviously each CMA is different, each property is different, and so this is the customization part. So that first line says, based on the market data and comparable sales in my CMA, my recommended list price is blank. So when you copy and paste this into your AI, you're just going to fill in whatever that blank is. So whether your price is 800,000, 650, whatever it is, go ahead and put that in there. And then the second part is evaluate the likely implications of listing at X below my recommended price, and X above my price. And so this is where you can also customize it because, for example, this property is recommended priced at 210. we're going to do smaller increments. So I'm going to say what happens if we go 5,000 above, what happens if we go 5,000 below. But if you're working with higher price points, you can then customize it to be like 20,000 above, 20,000 below, whatever you prefer. So we're also asking it to explain each scenario when we're looking at those categories that I highlighted earlier. And one thing that I wanted to include here is the verbiage at the bottom. It says, do not guarantee outcomes, keep the language professional, realistic, and easy for a seller to understand, and then create the matrix. Because, you know, these are all just strategies and predictions. Nothing is actually, you can't guarantee an outcome. And so putting that in the prompt just keeps the AI less specific when it comes to guarantees, because we can't guarantee that. But just like everything else, we're going to copy and paste that prompt into our channel here. And when we do that, that's when we're going to go in and fill out these blanks. So for this example, I'm going to do 210,000. And like I said, I'm going to keep it small. So we're going to do 5,000 below and 5,000 above. Now that we filled out our blanks, I'm going to let it think, and it's going to give us a brief write-up about what kind of is going to happen. So it's going to take the strategies and explain it in kind of the long written form. And then at the bottom, it's going to create that matrix for us that you saw a minute ago. So if you're sending an email to a client, or if you're just running through your own information before you meet with them, this is great because you can review everything. Most of this you may know already just because years of experience, you would kind of know what happens if you underprice the property versus overprice it. But these are just hitting some highlights specific to your CMA and the area in particular. So it walks through our three options. And then, like I said, it's going to create this strategy here highlighting the different paths that you can take. When we're looking at it, then it's going to do a summary of what our recommendation is and the why, just kind of explaining everything. But this isn't that pretty. We don't want to give this to our clients. You could, it's a good conversation starter. But if we're trying to be professional and stay on brand with everything, we want it to be a bit prettier. So we're going to say, if we look at our prompts, the final one is kind of a bonus prompt. You can leave it as is, but I want to turn this pricing strategy into a professional image that we can give our client leave behind. This is great because they're going to, if they are meeting with other realtors at this point, you can keep your strategies and kind of understand what it is, where other agents can come in. And if they try to give them a different price, they can see, oh, where does this fall on this matrix that this agent gave me? But just take this prompt, put it in there, and it's going to take the matrix and pizzazz it up a bit, make it more colorful and just easier to present to your sellers. So it's going to think for a bit, but for the sake of time, I went ahead and had it create it for me this morning. So as you can see, we went from just kind of the white, here's a general matrix, to here's something that you can actually print out and leave with your clients. So it's very easy to read. If they take 10 seconds to look at this, they can understand where you're coming from. Obviously, we have our recommended price. We have what happens if we go above, or below, what happens if we go above. And here are the kind of criteria that we're looking at. So is this a lot easier to read? Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so it's just a good way to take all the information that you are presenting them. And if you're meeting with them, you're having conversations, you're going to be covering a lot of information, and they may be a little overwhelmed or they may not remember everything. This is a great piece that you can include in your presentation, leave back behind with them, and they can review it and say, okay, yes, this makes sense. I'm comfortable with this price because here are all our reasoning. And the whole point of this class is to use these three things in tandem. So we're creating all of these outputs that really tell a story about the whole CMA. And it's essentially summarizing this big packet, but we're taking it in a way that is very easy for the consumers to use and understand. Randy.
So these categories down the left-hand side in blue.
Yes.
We didn't put those in there. All you did is ask for a matrix, and it came up with those things?
No. So if you look at the prompt that we put in, right here, I said for each scenario, explain buyer perception, market activity. So I did in the prompt tell it what categories I want, and then it knew what categories, it then pulled that information. But that's a great point because obviously if you want to focus on a different category or if you see something that, you don't really want to include, all you have to do is either delete it, add another one, add another bullet. It's customizable where you can create as many or as few as you'd like. So based on whatever you guys do in your current presentations, you can edit it to fit whatever works for your systems. Does that make sense? Perfect.
Okay. Question.
Yeah.
Did you get those potential, like all those buyer perception, all that?
Mhm.
Did you chat GPT that, like what most realtors talk about?
Yeah, so it was a combination of things. I talked with a good handful of our agents in our office as I was putting this together. Obviously, I was asking Rob as he was creating the CMA for me. And then I do put everything into Chat and Gemini as I'm making these classes, just so I know it works for both. They agree. So it's kind of taking a combination of information. But yeah, so this was a combination of the most typical ones that I heard responses from.
Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, this is what it is. If you prefer other things, that's the whole point of you being able to download this, save it to your files because you can repeat this every time. Or if you know for a certain property or the buyer or the sellers ahead of time and you say they're not really going to care about buyer perception, they're going to care about this, just their personality, you can tweak it and make it fit them more.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that, Edwin?
In Gemini, you can tweak whether you want to use like Flash or Pro or how deeply you want to think. And how much are you telling to think about it? Are you asking for faster output or slower output with more thought?
Mine is just set for the auto. So if it's generating an image, you're going to notice that it takes a bit longer. I'm okay with that because longer is 30 seconds, which doesn't really have an impact on me. But if it takes longer to generate an image, I would rather have it take that time than to create an image that is rushed or there may be an error. But if for Gemini, each function does have different strengths. So if you're generating images, I would do the one that is best at that. Yeah. Good question. Any others while we're on that? Awesome. So like I said, the three outputs that we had on this just work in tandem because we're taking the CMA and it's just a typical conversation that if your sellers are meeting with multiple realtors, everyone's going to kind of have this process. I mean, I asked how you prepare a CMA and pretty much everyone said through the MLS. So if you're working with the same CMA, this is a great way to distinguish yourself from other realtors, right? You're not coming in with the traditional conversation and talking points that everyone else does. You're coming in with unique graphics, unique talking points, and it's just in a much more digestible way for them. You're not presenting them with charts and numbers and everything, which is great if that's their personality. Most people, it's not. And so you're just bringing in something that's different that they haven't seen. And that really does set you above the rest of anybody that they're going to meet with. And if they aren't already signed with you, it's going to help them sign with you even quicker on that. So that was kind of my goal with this is take the CMA, which is kind of a basic thing that everyone is experts in and like can pull, but really bring AI into it to make it easier for you, have better talking points, and then create graphics that you can leave behind with your clients. So any questions about these three categories before we wrap up here at all? Or anything that we covered today or any questions about AI in general? Kim?
Well, I'm curious of everybody who's here. How would you present this? Would you leave behind the CMA from the MLS with these as well? Or would you not even bring that and just talk through these forms? Like how would you guys do this?
I feel like these are really nice. I think the CMA is really nice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Randy?
You mentioned Canva. Explain again how that plays in?
Canva had nothing to do with any of this. So Canva is great because you can get really in the weeds and customizing stuff and creating these graphics. However, you're going to be spending a lot more time on them, right? If you try to create this matrix in Canva, you'd be starting from scratch and probably spending a good amount of time, especially if you're not familiar with it. If you use AI, you don't have to be a design expert. AI is the design expert for you. Yeah, so no Canva this time.
Brian wouldn't leave any of this behind. He's just going to sign them.
You're just going to say, Brian, I love it. That's amazing. Just do it. Perfect. Be like Brian, everyone. That's great. Got it. Yeah.
So the three infographics that you created, do you think did you tweak that at all to do this, or these prompts right here created that?
I didn't tweak it at all. When I create these classes and everything, I show you what the first product is because it's kind of not trustworthy if I create a graphic and then have to make a bunch of little tweaks to it. That's not very honest as I'm presenting this. So everything that I showed you was the first try for AI. Every time you do it, it may give you a slight different variation, especially if you're doing it on different platforms. But with the prompts that I provided, the core material is the same. So it's going to give you a very close version of it.
Just to add a comment. I've been to like 3 AI trainings now, and one was some big guy out of New York, like a nationwide training. He said that ChatGPT has given the best results out of all the platforms for real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
So,
doing the AI classes now.
that makes sense. Yeah.
I've used all of them and I keep veering back towards ChatGPT.
Yeah. They just said for real estate anyway.
Yeah.
I know somebody who's in the insurance business and they use Chloe.
Claude.
Claude. Yep, Claude.
That's for their platform. So I think
Yeah. And it also depends on the image that you're generating. We're creating infographics, so it's like icons and words, tables, like organization. Chat is phenomenal at that. I haven't found that any of the other ones outperform Chat when it comes to infographics. If you're trying to create images where you're saying like, create an image of a cat in a tree doing blah, 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 like specific detailed, Chat is, I wouldn't say it's the best at that, but that's when you're getting the detailed images and like you want specific tweaks. If you're just taking a bunch of information and wanting to create a visual with it, Chat's the best.
Yeah, Chat is the best for visual. The other platforms visuals are, you kind of look at them and you're like,
You're like, oh wow, that's AI, great. Yeah, which is great because a few months ago that wasn't the case. I would be creating stuff with Chat and like, oh, I was going rendition after rendition because you had to make a bunch of tweaks. But they've come a long way. Yeah, Randy.
And just to clarify, if you don't like the particular output in one of those categories, the edit button was in the previous screen
Mm-hmm.
where we just had the narrative going.
Yes.
There was no edit pencil button.
Yep. You are 100% right. You click that pencil button, you can tweak what the words are, and then when you go to create an image, it will create with whatever tweaks that you made. Or if it just is the image, you can say, change this to this. And so you can make edits if you want. Yeah. Got it. Well, that is all that I had for you guys today. I will leave this up here in case anyone needed to get the QR code again for the worksheet at all. But I encourage you, even if you don't use it with your clients in your next presentation, try taking the next CMA that you make and running it through these prompts to see what the visuals are, because it's really cool what it creates. And it also is great on how you direct the conversations with your clients. So I encourage you to take everything, customize it if you want to change the prompts to better fit the conversations you have, but definitely work through it and let me know what your results are. I love hearing. Krista was just in here this morning and she said that she took what I did in the last class, do it with some clients. They loved it and it was great. So let me know what you guys think and if you use it out in the real world. Kim.
So if you create, once you have your form created and you really like it, can you save it in ChatGPT? Like, so you can refer back to it and say, use this form, the previous form or this format, or how does that, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes. So it does have memory. So obviously if you refer back to it, it'll create a similar style.
Yeah.
What I would do, just because it can get kind of in the weeds and we want to keep it as clean as possible.
Yep.
If you like that graphic, save it as in like your files, your camera roll, whatever.
Okay.
And then if you just like months down the road and a new topic, you say, create a infographic with this information using the same style as this and paste it in there.
Okay.
And so it'll see it and then create something in that same.
Okay.
That's typically what I do because you can refer back, but
Sure.
I found that especially if the memory gets really long or a long period of time goes by, it distorts it a little.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for coming. I'll obviously be around after if you have any questions or want me to go over anything, but I appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was the.
I mean, you could probably use CMA RPR. You need to have some. Yeah, I was trying to make infographics with Gemini.
Yeah.
Gemini,
You would make better. I don't
How
know.
long have you been here now?
I joined as the front desk person 2.5 years ago.